The topic today is how to use sales gamification to boost sales results. And in a nutshell, what we're here to talk about is how to turn sales into a game. If we start with the definition of gamification at the most basic level, the exact definition is the process of adding games or game-like elements to something, such as a task, so as to encourage participation. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. It's a little bit textbookish. If you want me to simplify that, gamification is to turn a task, maybe a routine task, into a game. And some examples, just to start to think about. A most basic example, if you could think of two kids walking home from school with their backpacks on, and one kid says to the other, "Hey, I'll race you to the end of the street." And then they race to the end of the street on their way home. That's gamification. That's turning a very routine task of walking home from school into a game. And there's a winner and there's a loser, and there's a way to perform. There's tactics that can be used to try to win. And so that's gamification at its most basic level. Another everyday example might be to lose some weight, to lose 50 pounds. Maybe it's your New Year's resolution to lose a certain amount of weight. The task of selling and sales is already gamified. A sales rep might have a $1.5 million annual sales quota. Well, there's already a lot of gamification characteristics in that type of arrangement. If we stop to think about how do we gamify something, and I believe it actually starts with a gameplay mindset. You may not realize that selling or doing something, it could be more of a game. If someone's to go play golf, they pick up a bag of golf clubs, they pick up a bag of golf balls, and they go out and play around the golf. Now, they could treat this as not really a game, meaning they could go out and swing the club a bunch of times and just try to hit the ball as much as possible. But if they really embrace the sport, which most golfers do this, they will realize that there are things that they can do to improve their performance, that there are a lot of mechanics that they can study and practice, that there's a lot of equipment that they can add or change out. And those changes and that level of energy and effort and different change in mindset will lead to better performance than if you just go out and swing the clubs as many times as you can. It starts with a change of mindset. Applying that to selling is that you could go out and just be yourself and work hard. You might sell a certain amount, but if you realize that it's a game and that you can develop your skill, but it begins with the mindset. Either you're a sales manager, you're a salesperson, and realizing that this is a game and I can either improve as a player and improve my odds of winning or improve my overall performance, or I can just think I'm going to be me and I'm going to work hard and it's either going to work well or it's not. And then of course you're going to define your target goals, which typically this has already been done. You typically have some quota handed to you. That's part of the process, is defining your goals. You might break the goal down of annual quota into quarterly quota or weekly quota, or I know some sales organizations break the annual quota down into a certain number of meetings per week, a certain number of appointments, and so that's going into a step in the right direction. And the next step here would be to break down the goals into objectives that lead to those goals. But the key thing here that I think a lot of sales organizations don't do is to break down the objectives into tasks and activities. Let's say you've broken it down to salesperson, you need to get this many meetings per week or generate this many leads. That's good, okay? That's a step in the right direction. But what are the tasks and the activities that lead to the setting of the appointment? In most cases, it might be the number of networking events that you attend, the number of outbound calls you make, the number of email campaigns you launch. So that's what I would tell you to do, is break down the tasks that lead to the objectives. And if you think about this in terms of a game, whether it's a video game or a board game or a sport, you just don't have, okay, the goal is to win, now go win. Any type of game that you play, you'll have to go through certain levels, or you'll have to do certain processes. Even if you think of the game of Monopoly, you have to go around the board, and you have to roll the dice, and you have to move the piece. So what are those individual tasks? And what I would say is break those down. Then not only do you want to break down the different things that you need to do, you could almost think of those as the rules of the game. These are this is the process that I need to go through. I'm going to move my game piece around the board in a clockwise order according to how many times I roll the dice, and I need to do these certain actions. But also embrace that there's typically a strategy for winning the game. Let's go back to Monopoly. In Monopoly, you want to get all the properties of a certain area, and that allows you to build houses and hotels, and that's what can lead to you making money. Well, there's a little bit of logic and game theory in that strategy, and the same thing applies if you're going to gamify really anything. If we're going to race somebody to the end of the street, there's strategy to how we exert our energy. Maybe we put it all out in a short sprint, or maybe it's a long distance and we need to pace ourselves. Well, with sales, there's a strategy. Maybe there's a certain logic to how we attack our territory. Maybe there's a certain logic to how we use the phone and use email, or develop our sales pitch, or design a campaign. So embrace maybe external strategies or new strategies or your own strategy, or be open to the concept that there is a strategy that can be used to improve your performance at the particular game. I talked about breaking down the goals into objectives and tasks and activities, and so I think key with any game is measuring performance. Think about any sport. Take basketball, for example, or any game. There's a score that's kept track of, and then there's a number of points that are accrued on each level, and there's a number of bonus points that are calculated. If going back to basketball, there's a score for the game at the end of the game, but there was a halftime score, there was a first quarter score. There's also a number of points for each player. There's also a ton of other metrics calculated, such as number of assists, number of rebounds, points per game, and whatnot. You want to gather the data for the different activities that you're performing, the activities that are going to lead to you reaching your objectives, and the objectives that are going to lead to you reaching your goals. You want to keep track of the activities and measure that performance. And the key to that is not just gathering that data, but making it accessible to the player of the game. So not just to the manager, but if you're the basketball player on the team, you want to know what your average points per game are, because you want to know whether those are going up or going down. You want to know if you have a certain goal for number of assists per game, then you want to know how many assists you had last night. You want to have visibility into your performance and know exactly where you stand, so that you can know how you're trending. That can tell you a lot of great things. If you can know how you're trending, if you're trending in the right direction, that can make you feel good. If you're trending downward, that can be good and even better information, because it can give you that feeling of urgency and notification that you need to change and make some changes. So visibility and access to data is extremely critical when you try to gamify something, especially sales. There could be a repercussion for not performing well, and I think there already is this in most sales roles. If you don't sell over a period of time, most likely you're not going to be working for that company forever. You'll be forced out, pushed out, whatever, or you'll leave on your own. Just as in any game, there's a winner and there's a loser. And so that might not be something you need to add. You could look at, if you're measuring certain tasks, you could look at any repercussions for not reaching certain mini goals or mini objectives. And then when you gamify something, there's some level of competition. Most sports and games, you're competing against somebody else, but competition in sales gamification's pretty straightforward, because you're typically on a team with other salespeople. So creating competition amongst the team is really key and critical, or helpful in terms of gamifying. So those are just some tips on how to gamify something. I'm going to show you some tools here at the end of this, but you can do a lot of those things without buying any tools. I mean, you might have to create some stuff using Microsoft Excel or whatever, but you can do a lot of this stuff with in-house tools. Let's go back to some of those examples that I shared with you that were every day, and I talked to you a little bit about that losing weight. It's an example of gamification, and the reason why I feel that way is because you have your goal of, okay, let's lose so many pounds in so many months. So that's a challenge. It's a game. You're either going to win or you're going to lose against that challenge. But one thing that I think is interesting is that the scale is kind of like the analytics. The scale is the dashboard. It's the data. We step on the scale, and that's our feedback on how we're doing. I think that's kind of interesting. And typically what happens is we look at the scale as much as possible. The gameplay strategy for this game is, okay, we need to move more activity, and we need to eat less or eat healthier. And that's typically what goes on. And that's what I would call natural gamification. And I call it natural gamification because it's not really great. There's some things missing here, and that's why a lot of people don't really succeed at this game. And some of the things that are missing are, okay, we know we need to move more and be more active, but what exactly do we need to do, and how much do we need to do, and when do we need to do it? Stepping on the scale doesn't really tell us how we're doing with our activity level. So there's a disconnect there. Our analytics and our data is not detailed in terms of what we need to see. For example, our activity level might be good, but it's not showing up yet on our weight, and so it's not going to show up yet on the scale. Comparing that to selling is that we might be making some good progress in our tasks and activities, but we haven't sold anything yet. So if we just look at our quota and what we've sold year to date, it's like stepping on the scale. It doesn't give us the data that we need. So that's why I'm kind of using this as an example here. This strategy here doesn't really tell us exactly what to eat. If you think about a lot of the common people, they know they need to eat healthier, but they don't really have that strategy of a structured diet. They just say, okay, I'm going to stop eating fast food and eat healthier this year. With what I'm describing here, there's not real good data and visibility into what is the progress and what is going on a daily basis. And the reason why I point this out is because a really great example of gamification that's every day all around us, and you might either use this or know of this, someone that uses this, is Fitbit. Fitbit basically adds gamification to the game of trying to lose weight or get healthier. And like I said, I don't know if you've seen any of these products or are familiar with them, but at the most basic level, a Fitbit will track how many steps you've taken. Well, it'll track a lot of different things, but one of the main things it tracks is how many steps you've taken throughout a day. Well, that's one of the, if our goal is to be more active, that's a goal or an objective. One of the tasks is to take more steps, and this tool tracks that task. So if you compare that to selling, we know we need to sell more. We know we need to have more meetings with prospects. We can get our hands around that. But what are the tasks that lead to that? With Fitbit, when you see that data of how many steps you're taking in a view that allows you to see when you're taking your steps throughout the day, how many steps you've taken throughout the week, and how you're ranking, you can have good visibility in terms of how you're performing, and that can help you to make decisions in terms of whether you need to improve or whether you're on track or doing well, even if the data at the scale is not showing up right. And it's not just steps. I mean, I'm not going to try to sell you a Fitbit here, but the Fitbit also tracks like calories, and you can there's a food diary and all sorts of different stuff, heart rate. So a lot of great data, but that data is what enhances the level of gamification of that routine task. And so that, again, it provides you with visibility on how you're performing, how you're progressing. Fitbit also has a social element, so you can connect with your friends through the app, and what that allows you to do is become more competitive, and that might push you to the next level or push you to go work out on a day where you wouldn't have worked out. Comparing that with selling, if we can use a tool like this to get you or the people that work for you to compete more, that could be the difference of maybe selling that extra deal per week or per month. And Fitbit rewards you. I actually used to have one. I don't use it anymore, so for sure I'm not trying to sell you the product or fully endorse it, but when I used mine, what it would do is when I had a target of 10,000 steps per day, and when I reached my target, the band that I wore would vibrate. And at the most simplest level, that's a reward. your wristband vibrating, because what that does is that tells you you've done it. You've reached your target for the day, and believe it or not, it feels good. It feels good when you feel that wrist band vibrating. In the sales world, that could be the equivalent of a manager patting you on the back. And so when you add all that up, what this does is, if you're working it on this task or this goal of losing weight, this level of gamification makes it more clear what to do. It increases your level of motivation because you have that visual view into how you're doing, and you can see that you're being very productive, or that you need to do more. It can improve your level of commitment. It can improve your results. Maybe you don't hit your ultimate goal, but you would achieve more than you would if you didn't have this tool and enhance the level of gamification in this area. Let's go through that same thing looking at sales and kind of tie those together. So like I said, sales is already somewhat of a natural level of gamification. You have a sales quota. You're going to have clear performance on how you're doing against your quota, and you might have some mini targets, and you're going to get rewarded in the form of commissions. So what more characteristic of gamification can you realize there? I mean, of all the professions, out of the gate, sales is one that's already some type of game, more than any other maybe. And like I said, there is data collected, right? So you can see how much you've sold this week, this month, this year. So you have performance data. With the natural level of gamification and tools out there, probably not as much performance data as you could benefit from. In most sales situations, there are performance plans and terminations for not performing well. So like I said, with most games, there's a risk if you don't perform well. Like a video game, you have 3 lives. When all 3 lives are gone, the game is over. And it's kind of similar in sales. I mean, if you miss your number so many times, you're typically going to be out. There is a strategy typically in play with most sales organizations, and unfortunately, I'm speaking from experience working in a good number of different sales organizations in my career. The majority of them, they might give you some sales training, but at the end of the day, the strategy is to work hard and to sell more and go make it happen. I personally definitely think there's room for improvement from a strategy standpoint. I mean, it's sort of like if you're playing Monopoly. If we go back to Monopoly, if someone was coaching you to play Monopoly and they say, just play real hard, play it for a long time, be smart, that's not going to be a good strategy to win. But if someone is teaching you how to play the game and they tell you which properties you want to buy and how to make trades and how to invest your money in building up your properties, that's a real strategy. And I think that's totally missing, from the majority of sales organizations out there, in my personal opinion. The gaps that are here are because the data, the performance metrics, and the strategy is not really probably what it should be with either better tools and better methodology. The salesperson ends up in a situation where they don't know what activity to do, when to do it, how much to do, or they don't know how much they're doing. They don't have visibility in terms of what they've done or what they're doing, so they don't know whether to increase or that they're at the right level. They don't know what to do and what not to do from a strategy standpoint. Do I call this person back or do I not? Do I fly out to meet with this prospect or do I skip that meeting? I mean, do I say this? Do I not say that? What is the progress I'm making? I know what my sales number is year to date. Does that tell me exactly how good I'm doing? If I haven't sold much, am I doing a bad job? The person that sold a ton, are they doing a great job? Maybe, maybe not. So, and what's going on every day? Every day I'm working. So, was today a good day? Was today a bad day? I don't know from this. But we can enhance that. We can enhance that through tools and enhance that level of gamification. And so some ways to do that is, again, what I would recommend is you break down the goals into objectives and tasks and activities. Basically, it's break down the goals into the objectives that would lead to those goals, and then identify the tasks and activities that will lead to successfully reaching those objectives. At a most simple level, what are the meetings and leads that are going to lead to me hitting my quota? What are the tasks and activities I need to do to generate those leads and meetings? It's very simple. So, but the thing is that We want to collect data on the tasks and activities. That's the data that's going to allow us to know what we need to do, what we need to change, or how we're doing. The salesperson needs to have visibility into the performance and progress. They need to have visibility into that data that's being collected. And it can be helpful if you're a manager to create the level of competitiveness across coworkers and implement a strategy for improving gameplay. So let's go back to the golf metaphor. It's not just, okay, you're going to go play golf, swing the club real hard, do a good job, work real hard, and whatnot. It's about, okay, work on these different mechanics. Here's some strategies. So incorporating some logic in terms of what is the strategy we're going to use to win this game, and reward for reaching targets. So like I said, there's already a reward for selling, but maybe there could be some mini rewards. The person that scheduled the most meetings for a week, gets some sort of reward. It could be a monetary reward. It could be a verbal recognition. It could be it could be anything. You could get real creative. If you do that with your sales organization, what can that help with? Well, at a most basic level, it's going to improve the level of motivation. So let's go back to the kids that were running to the end of the street. Those kids might be so bored with walking home, and they might wish they had a bike so they didn't have to walk home. When they turn it into a game, they forget that they're walking home. So you make something fun out of something that's boring, and that can increase the level of motivation. That you forget that you're working. You can improve your motivation because you're able to see the progress you're making. So when you have your Fitbit and that you see that you've already walked 8,000 steps for the day, you get excited about those next 2,000 steps. And you're like, I'm going to hit my 10,000 step target early today, and let me go crush it. You get more motivated by seeing that data and having that visibility. Implementing gamification increases competitiveness across the team members. So that's something that's great to have. If you have 5 people working for you and each one's working independently and doesn't care about what the other person's doing, they might all perform added up at a certain level. If you get them watching each other and wanting to beat each other, there's no doubt about it that the overall performance for the team is going to be more. Increase the feeling of accomplishment. Again, seeing that data of here's what I've done, here's what I've accomplished, it feels good. It feels good to see this is what I've done today. Taking that back to the scale. If I step on the scale and it doesn't show that anything's changed, but I've made progress throughout that particular day, I want to see what I've done during that day, and that will help me to feel well so that I continue to do so that I continue to the next day. I don't need to just look out at 6 months and the 6-month goal. I need to look at today. What have I accomplished today? And that can improve how you feel about what you've accomplished if you have that visibility. If you break it down to the activity and task level, and that's what you're tracking, versus throwing big targets at yourself or a salesperson, then you can improve the level of clarity for what to do, because you're going to get yourself or the salesperson focused on the task that needs to be done. And meaning, yes, I know I need to sell $1.5 million this year, but that's so huge. What do I need to do today? And if all I'm thinking about is 1.5 million, I will lose sight of what I need to do today. If it's all broken down and tracked into what I'm doing every day and at the task level, then I know I need to make 50 outbound phone calls today. That's what I need to do today. And that I'm going to focus on doing that. If someone is a salesperson and they start realizing that their sales effort is a game, they might start to turn it more into something that they become good at. Instead of just going out and being themselves and showing up at 8 and leaving at 5, if they realize I have control over becoming better at this, it's sort of like that person that starts to love the game of golf. They realize it's not just about going out and working hard, it's about learning and practicing. And it's that person that when they start to get that mindset, that they start to go to the driving range during the week and practice for their weekend round with their friends that they're going to go try to compete against. And so it's that mindset that leads to improving skill development. And that in the sales world, that might lead to a salesperson that on their own And I'm speaking from my own experience, not to like pat myself on the back, but I was a salesperson, and with my own credit card, I went on Amazon and bought a sales book, without my manager knowing this or telling me to do this. And I read the book on my own relaxation time. And so that's where you get into the world of someone really embracing what they do. And when you add up some of those things, it can improve the level of pride. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to get better at. This is what, and this is what I love to do. And when you start to become better at something and becoming more of an expert, you start to enjoy it more, and it can increase your level of pride. And this can just increase your overall level of performance, the overall performance for a team. Why does all that work? Well, it's fairly simple. One of the big things about gamification is we want to know how we're doing. So that's why, let's go back to the losing weight. If you've ever tried to lose weight or gain weight or get healthier, I guarantee you've probably stepped on a scale more frequently than you should have. Even if, let's just say if your weight only was going to change enough for you to step on the scale once a week, you probably stepped on the scale more frequently than that. And the reason why is, it's because we want to know how we're doing. We want that feedback. That's why people go out and they buy a Fitbit. They want to know how they're doing. So salespeople want to know how they're doing as well. We want to feel like we're accomplishing something. I don't know if there's anything more to say there, but other than it feels good to accomplish something. If we look at the two extremes, on one extreme we have a big task in front of us, and when we see it being completed or making tremendous progress, whether it's cleaning your house or mowing your yard, as you see it becoming accomplished and completed, that feels good. On the other side of the extreme is, imagine having a task that you're working extremely hard at, and you feel like you're spinning your wheels in place. In the sales world, an example of this might be you spend an hour making phone prospecting calls and you don't talk to anybody. And that can happen very easily, and that does not feel good. That feels like you're not accomplishing anything, and so that doesn't feel good. The reality is that you are accomplishing something, and that's a good example of how gamification can help. Because if you do spend an hour making calls, even if you don't talk to someone, you are making progress. And the reality is that hour that you spent won't show up on your sales report, but it will show up if you use gamification correctly, and it is good effort, and you are making progress. So, but the point there is that it feels good to accomplish something and to know we are. We also want to know what to do. It never feels good to not have a large task in front of us and to not know what we need to do. Even if we know, I want to reach this goal, I want to be successful, but I don't know what to do to get from here to there. I don't know what steps to take. That doesn't feel good. And on the other extreme, if we know exactly what to do and we just have to do it, that feels a lot more comfortable. It might not feel great because we have work to do, but at least it doesn't feel negative in terms of not knowing what to do. It can feel good to have control over what we're doing. See, gamification can basically, think of it as giving levers and buttons to a salesperson. They can start to realize that, okay, if this is a lever here in terms of this set of tasks, and if I move this lever up, it's going to have this certain amount of effect, and if I don't move this lever enough, it's going to have this other type of effect, and this button over here, which is associated with this activity, if I push that a whole bunch, it's going to lead to this. And so that, if you can set up gamification to where the salesperson starts to realize that all these tasks and activities have a certain effect on different things, then they can start to feel like they have control over their ability to hit their targets and to do what they are supposed to do, and that can feel good. And at the end of the day, it can feel good to win and to perform well and to beat someone else if that is your teammates. If none of this other gamification stuff is motivation enough for you or for your organization, it can make something boring fun. Think of that again, just the kids walking home from school. If it turns walking home from a boring thing that you have to do every day to I'm racing my buddy, think about applying that to sales. Instead of your sales team looking at their watch and their clock waiting for 5 o'clock, they're hustling and talking trash to one another. When you end up at that stage, then you start to forget that you're working. And so those are some of the reasons why all of this works. Now, we're in the home stretch here, so I'm just going to show you a couple gamification tools. The first one is a progress tracking worksheet. This is old school, free gamification at the most basic level. These are certain activities that I've just sort of brainstormed and outlined. You have everything from making calls, sending emails, talking with people. So basically, these are when someone answers your call. So you have conversation or connects or hits, whatever you want to label that as, and then leads generated. So that could be scheduling a meeting, setting an appointment, whatever you consider a lead to be, and going to networking events. So I think it's real good for you to have a quota for yourself for how many networking events you go to. Like one networking event per week. How many meetings or appointments you have with clients. How many presentations you give. How many proposals you send out. How many deals you close. So I think that's a pretty good list of the main steps that you go through a sales process, and you could kind of think of these as like the beginning of the sales cycle, and here's the end. And you might want to add stuff if I've left anything out. But what you could simply do is either print this out and use a pencil or pen and just do like check marks and print one of these out per week. And so that at the most basic level, you could just have this on your desk, and you can look down here and just see how many marks you have. You could use the digital version and type a number and type over that when you add another. So you use this for however you want, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it could be a good starting point for you. Now, an improvement above that is this spreadsheet, which I've loaded up and I've called it activity tracking. And so this has a lot of the same stuff, but if you use this as a spreadsheet, I've basically put in some calculations in here so that you can have some ratios. But you have the same data here, call attempts, connects, email sent, leads generated, and so you have the different days of the week here, and you can just have this up and you can manually type in when you've made another call. Then you have some ratios here, like how many calls it took for you to get connected with a prospect, how many calls it took to get to leads, how many connects it took to get to a lead. So some different ways to look at data. Then you have networking events and meetings, presentations, proposals, deals closed. So again, listen, I don't know whether this is perfect or complete, but again, if this is something you like, this should be a good starting point for you with what you're doing. One thing I want to point out, and this is important if you do use the sheet, is that notice that, so like this is this week. This is the week that we're in right now. This is last week. So it actually goes from left to right. The reason why these documents that I use do that is because, and I use a few of these. I use documents like these in some areas of my personal life where there's things that I'm trying to work on, whether it's like physical fitness or whatever, to-do lists, things that I want to continually do and work on. I keep track of. But the thing is that when you get to a new week, you don't want to add it over here, because what you end up with there is when you continue to add to this, you're going to have a document that you're like in 3 months you're going to have to continue to scroll all the way out here. What you want to do is you want to have the week that you're working on right here on the left margin, basically. So when you get to next week, what you do is you highlight, you click insert, and then you just do like a copy and paste. So here we go. Now I need to fix the bordering, but basically there you have your new week and you change it. So you would do that like for my list like this. I do that every Monday morning. Every Monday morning I go and I create the new week, and then I keep track of my data for the week. And then depending on what you're collecting data, basically you can view this as collecting data. So I've created these ratios for you, but essentially, if you're collecting data on the different things you're doing, you should be able to manipulate that into different pieces of valuable information. What's not, you could get real creative. You could look at these numbers decreasing or increasing week over week. You could look at trends. The key is collecting the data, and then you can manipulate that data in all sorts of different ways, and I'll leave that up to you. But this is just a real simple starting place. Speaking of data and collecting data, as you probably know by now, we have the application of Sales Scripter, and we actually have a feature in here that is it's a version of gamification, and I want to show you it real quick. And the thing is that I do want to point out that this is I'm not this I'm going to demonstrate our product, but this is not something we sell by itself. We don't sell gamification by itself. Our customers don't come to us to purchase gamification. If you see this and you say that's pretty cool and I want to learn about what else you guys do, that's great. But I'm not showing you this to schedule a meeting to talk to you about gamification, because we don't sell this by itself. But we if I do say so myself, we are doing some really interesting stuff, and I want to show it to you. And at the lowest level, it might give you some ideas in terms of what you might do with your spreadsheet, okay, or whatever. So, and then like I said, if you think it's really great and you want to learn about what else we do, let me know. But this is a feature that we have inside a Sales Scripter, and it's called Prospect Points. And so it's kind of a game. And here in my demo system here, these are four people, and there's 2 columns of points here. So again, it's prospect points. So it's kind of like a scoring system. There's 2 classifications of points. You have quality points, which basically means quality points for the people that we're selling to. So think of it as lead scoring, or like if you send an email to someone and they open your email and they click on a link, they automatically get a set of quality points. They get like 1 point for opening an email and 3 points for clicking on a link. So that's an example of quality points. By the way, those points are logged automatically by sending emails out directly through Sales Scripter. There's other ways to accrue quality points, and I'm going to show you that. That's the main thing I'm going to show you here today. There's also a column for pursuit points. These are how hard the salesperson is working. So you can, if you make a cold call, you get a pursuit point. If you set an appointment with a prospect, you get like 5 pursuit points. So it's how hard you're working, and it's also how good of a job you're doing. And I'll show you how these individual salespeople are accruing all these points. But you can look at this table here, and if we sort this by highest, you can see Mary Thomas has the most points, the most quality points. So she's generating the most interest. And then if I sort the pursuit points list, Mary Thomas also has the most pursuit points, so she's working the hardest. These might be, and this is good data too, because you might have someone who's working the hardest, but they might not be generating the most interest, which is very interesting information, right? So that's good data. I mean, what does that tell us? We don't know. Maybe it tells us that the person's not doing, if you make 100 dials per day, but you're saying the wrong thing, you might have 0 results, and that's not good. So whether that's an example of how gamification and the data can tell the manager something. But these points are accrued over time, so we can plot that data here on these line charts. So here's a chart for quality points, and you can see all the individual salespeople and how each person's doing. And if that line is difficult to read, you can separate the lines out by individual salesperson. There's also a chart here for pursuit points, so you can see how much interest this person's generating over the past 30 days, and you can change the chart for this week or whatever, and you can see how hard the person's working. Now this data also makes it real easy to have sales contests. If you're a sales manager, you can say, hey, whoever has the most pursuit points today gets a free gift card to Chili's, whatever. So some really cool data there. Now let me show you how a person goes about accruing those points for themselves. Is that it comes from our CRM, where we have, if we click on a contact, what happens is that on each contact, in most CRMs you have a button that says log a call. In our system, you log an interaction, and what happens is you can log whether, let's say you call someone or you have a meeting. Let's say you call someone. If you click on that type of interaction, then all of the most common things that can happen in an interaction are listed out. And you can very easily go, okay, I called them, they answered my call, they're not using anything that we have, they have pain but they don't know it. And so you can start to check all the different things that happen and log that. A couple things happen there. One is you're going to log a very detailed note without typing anything, although you can add more notes if you need to. But it's each individual thing that happens on that call, that each detail has its own set of quality points and pursuit points. And see, I get 2 pursuit points for making the call. I get 1 quality point for them just simply answering my call. Let's say that they call me, then that's going to show that they're very interested. So it's logging each call and each activity. You can also log all the different objections that occur, and you get a negative quality point if a prospect gives you an objection. But if they say not interested, then you can log that, and so you can get your salespeople logging all the different objections that come up in their interactions. And so it's that data that leads to this, and that's what can lead to you knowing how hard you're working. Again, like I told you before, you might spend an hour making calls and you might not have any leads or appointments, but maybe you had some good conversations, maybe you had some good attempts, and so you're going to see that data here. And it's that data that's going to keep you going and know that you are doing a good job, even if you haven't set a meeting or sold anything. And so this can allow this is the difference between having your quota and knowing how much you've sold is like stepping on a scale. This data is like wearing your Fitbit around your wrist and knowing how many steps you've taken. And it's that data that can not only tell you when you need to improve, but it's that data that can tell you, you know what, hang in there. You're doing a good job. You're doing all the right things, and it's going to happen. Just one other minor thing with that data. I mentioned objections. If you do, and this is really just kind of more attractive to the sales manager, but if you are logging those objections with each of those interactions, you're going to end up with some really cool data on what objections are coming up for the team. So this is data for the team, and here we have the biggest objection is that they already use somebody. So that's something good to talk about in the weekly sales meeting is, hey guys, looks like a third of the time this objection's coming up. How are we handling that? But you can also see this data for an individual rep, and maybe it's going to be different. See, like here's drilling into one particular rep. The data is totally different for this rep, and that this rep is running into, they said they weren't interested. So what's going on there? The rest of the team is not even, maybe this is not even really the big issue, and for this rep, this is a big issue. So not completely gamification, but that is kind of gamification. We're really able to, from a sales management standpoint, we're really able to see charts and visualize the data of what's going on instead of just talking with people and saying, if we go back to the golf metaphor, instead of just telling someone to swing a certain way, like in a sales meeting, saying go work hard and do a good job, this is like recording someone swinging the club, and then we're able to meet with them and say, hey, see when you're swinging the club and your elbow is doing this, that's not good. So this is the equivalent of having that really valuable data to sit down with someone, and you can make those really powerful corrections to have a very big impact versus just figuratively talking every Monday morning about how's everything going without really truly knowing what's going on. So anyways, that's all I'm going to share with you on those 3 examples. So I'm giving you 2 free examples that you can maybe build on or take something with, and then there's Sales Scripter, which is actually, just to wrap up, Sales Scripter is part of our smart sales system. So this is we call it SMART because this SM is sales messaging and response tactics, and it's a system that will help you with your sales messaging and response tactics, and it's improving that area that will lead to you having better results. But we provide this system through three ways. One is a sales methodology. So if you've liked some of the things you've heard here today, or you want to learn more about our methodology, it's actually all on YouTube for free, and you can access our whole methodology, or you can access it through our ebooks. And so we provide it through recorded training, we provide it through live training and whatnot. We give away a lot of our training for free through ebooks and through YouTube, because our business model is really on getting people that love our methodology to use our software and to use our prospect points and to use our software to build their sales scripts and to automate the delivery of their emails. So that's really what our business model is. And then the third leg of what we offer is professional services. So we provide sales consulting to help you with building your pitch and building your sales processes, looking at your existing scripts, and helping you to structure your sales process and your messaging and whatnot. And we work one-on-one with salespeople as well. Our real mission is that through the SMART sales system, basically by us helping you to create clarity for what to say and do, will help you or your salespeople to be smart, right? Because you're going to know what to say, you're going to be smart. I mean, at the most basic level, right? I mean, if I throw you into a situation where you have no idea what's going on, you're not going to be smart. We're going to make you smart. We're going to help you to ask good questions, because part of what teaching you what to say is asking good questions. The best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions, and we're going to teach you how to ask the best questions. By asking good questions, not only are you going to be smart, you're going to appear smart. It's interesting. When I have new salespeople that work for me and I teach them good questions to ask, they get in front of clients right away, and they make good impressions because they're going to. You can teach someone to ask good questions, and you can make a good impression by asking good questions. By appearing smart, by asking good questions, you're going to appear smart. And when you appear smart, you're going to make a good impression with the prospects that you talk to. By asking good questions, you're going to have more information and from your prospects. If you only do talking about we sell this and we do that, and you don't ask them questions about what's going on with them, you're not going to have information about them. But when you have information about them, that will make you smart. And this will help you to make better decisions regarding how you sell to them, who you sell to, the business case you try to build, the decisions you make with every single thing that you do. And by making good decisions and smart decisions, you'll be able to use your time wiser and get the most out of each day and each week. And by being smart, you will position yourself to sell more, and your job will not only be easier, and you're going to make more money, it's going to be less stressful. So the pricing for our sales system is real easy. I mean, if you're to purchase our software, it's $49 per user per month. You do get a 40% discount if you purchase for the year. Our sales training is actually free on YouTube at no cost. If you want to upgrade to some of our live training, we can talk about that on a case-by-case basis. Our software is self-service, so you can get in there and within 15 minutes you have a whole library of documents already created for you with your pitch. I personally go through a process with my customers that's called a scripter walkthrough, where I'll spend personally 2 hours with you and help you to create your pitch inside of our software, and it's only $200. So for $249, you're actually going to get a library of scripts filled in and emails and tools with an awesome sales pitch that I helped you to create. And I can confidently consider myself an expert in creating sales messaging and a sales pitch. I have no doubts about labeling myself as that. Apologize if that sounds arrogant, but anyways, what I want to share with you though is that if you were to go to Barnes and Noble and to go to the business section, and if you were to see on the shelf a book for that said that if it was titled your industry, the product that you sell, and it said a book filled with call scripts, meeting scripts, objection responses, voicemail scripts, and email templates for this product, and that product's your product. If the book said that, and it had everything that you get in our software, and the price on the book was only $249, you would run out of that bookstore, and you'd probably throw $300 on the counter, and you'd run out of there because it would be the best deal that you could ever have, and you would be so happy that you found this book. And that's what you basically get with our system. Now, that's if you canceled it. Now, of course, you might use our software beyond month one, and it's $49 a month. So that's sort of that's why it's such a great deal, is that in theory you're going to use our software longer. And so that's why we give you such a great deal on the walkthrough and on the software, is that we want to have a long-term relationship with you. But you don't have to. You can cancel our software after month one if you want to download everything we give you, and if you want to pay the bare minimum. You can only pay $49 if you don't even want my help. But if you want to spend 2 hours with me, it's like I said, $250, and you're going to have an awesome sales pitch. So it's quite a deal. But anyways, so that's the smart sales system. Here's my contact info. If you have any questions, if you need any help, follow us on Twitter, send me an email. Glad to help.